This lesson focuses on an IELTS listening question type that actually has several different varieties of questions that basically all do the same kind of thing, or at least they ask you to do the same kind of thing. So we're going to group them all together and take a look at form, note, flowchart, table, and summary completion questions, which all share a lot of similar features with one another. First, let's just look at some examples so you can become familiar with these. And I'll go somewhat quickly through these, but if you want to pause your video and take a look at the examples, you can see the various types that are here. This first one is a note completion question. This is in this type of question, you've got some notes. Sometimes this is something you'll find in a part 4 listening passage, okay, where a professor is usually giving a lecture on something. You might have some notes about the lecture, or it could be something much more basic. It could be something like, I think what we see here is either a monologue or a discussion about the some place called the Office of Community Enhancement, and we're looking at some notes that we need to fill in about a discussion or a presentation about that particular place. Okay, so just some basic kind of notes like you would fill out in a class you take. Okay, the second type here, form completion questions. Just like the name suggests, this is just a form you need to fill out. You can expect to find one of these on part 1 of the listening test, because often this involves just very basic information like you see here. You have to listen for someone's name, a number of some kind, in this case a residence hall. Here this looks like an application that a student would fill out in order to sign up for a meal plan at his or her school. So we just need to listen for this basic information. That's what we would need to do for this form completion question. Okay, the next type is table completion questions. Again, you can see these are all very similar. In this case, we have some kind of table, or it's almost like often a sort of spreadsheet or something like that, where you have different categories of things, and you need to fill out the chart or fill out the table that you see there. So if you notice on this one, at the top we've got some labels, park name, and we've got different parks. These parks are all located in the United States. Founding year. Okay, so we've got to listen for when that park was first founded, and the number of annual visitors at the park. Okay, so we just need to listen to the description from the speakers and fill out the necessary information for this type of question. Next one, we've got a summary completion. Here we've got information summarized, information you're going to hear from the passage that's summarized, and we need to fill in the words that fit in each of the blanks here to complete the summary. Okay, so just like the other questions, except here we've got a short paragraph that needs to be completed using words that we hear from the speakers. All right, and the last type within this sort of general category, we've got a flowchart question. So a flowchart is something that describes a process, something from beginning to end, and you simply need to fill in the blanks for the chart there. All right. Now, as you can tell, looking through some basic information here, all of these question types are pretty similar to one another, even though they take different forms. The basic idea is that you need to fill in gaps in the provided information. Okay, so all of these give you some information, whether it's notes or a table or a summary. They give you a lot of information, and you simply need to fill in the missing pieces to that information that's provided. The question types in this category all usually focus on main ideas, so it's rare that you'll have to listen for a very, very small detail, okay? But it's possible, and there's no guarantee it's all going to be main or basic ideas, so you just need to study what's there and look for what kind of information to listen for in the passage. Okay, so two varieties here. So you will either do one of the following. Number one, you're either going to select answers from a list of choices. Okay, so like on other question types we find in the listening paper, there could be a box with lettered answer choices for you to choose from. Or the second option will be to choose words that are spoken in the passage itself, to use those words to fill in blanks, okay? So the second type here is just a short answer question type, so you'll have to pay attention to word counts like you always do on other types of short answer questions on the IELTS. Okay, now let's look at some strategies for this. So what should you do in the time you have before listening to the speakers providing information for these questions? Okay, to analyze and predict for these. All right, the first thing, just like other types of questions with visuals or lots of information provided for you to analyze, make sure you spend your time studying the given information, including titles, okay? Look for whatever you can to give you a clue about what to expect and what kind of information to listen for. Now for these questions, expect that some of the labels, some of the information provided for you on the table or the chart or whatever you're looking at is going to be paraphrased, okay? But they will also often give you some direct language to give you clues about when to move from one question to the next, okay? But do expect that at least some of it will be paraphrased, especially if there's information in the question itself. So let's say you're trying to answer question number 2 and there is some descriptive information surrounding that prompt in some place. That would be a good place to expect some paraphrased language from what the speaker says, okay? But anyway, just keep in mind not all labels or information on the chart that's given to you or provided is going to be direct language from the text. It could be paraphrased. Okay, now as you analyze, pay close attention to the question organization on the visual. What categories of things do you need to listen for? Earlier we saw an example on our table completion question where some of the information related to the dates, okay, the dates that the national parks were founded, right? That is key information to know that we're going to be listening for numbers, okay, and just analyzing where each of the questions is located, circling those categories if you need to. That's a really good idea. Related to that, look for information to tell you when you're going to move from one question to the next. Okay, so are there, do the questions fall under certain labels or categories on the visual you're looking at? What are the clues provided on the chart or the table, whatever you're looking at, to let you know that you are going to move, for example, from question 2 to question 3, okay? That is key information to notice and to look for before the passage begins. Okay, now special note for summary questions. These are a little different from the others in this category, even though you have to supply missing information just like all the others. In this case, before you listen, your number one goal should be to try to read through the summary from beginning to end before the speaker begins speaking. Okay, so that you've got a short amount of time. If you see a summary question coming, use that time to read the whole summary so you know what's there. Underline keywords as you go, really using very similar strategies, except that there's going to be more language to get through than you might find on some type of table or so a set of notes. Okay, so a little challenging there, but basically the same idea as the others. All right, let's look at an example here now, just thinking about how to apply our strategies we've just discussed. So here's our note completions question that we saw way at the beginning of this lesson. So a few things to notice for this. If I had a question like this, I would begin by first of all, just taking a quick scan of the notes to notice what's there. First of all, we know from the directions that we have a word limit of 3 words and or a number there. So it could be a relatively long answer for a short answer question like this. Okay, now notice first we've got our title for this set of notes. Office of Community Enhancement. Okay, what is this going to be? What is an Office of Community Enhancement? Well, we don't know, and we're gonna have to listen to the speakers to know exactly what this kind of thing is. But enhancement means to make something better, right? So this is some kind of office related to making the community better in whatever place this is that we're listening to. Okay, could be useful information as we listen. All right, then as we go down, notice along the left side of our notes, we have what looks like category information. So the purpose of the agency, the current projects, and the future projects. Okay, really good clues there, indicating when you're going to need to move from one question to the next as you focus on listening for the answers, right? The question number 1, we're looking for, well, basically it looks like, what is the Office of Community Enhancement's mission? Okay, what does it try to do? What's the purpose of that agency? And we have to listen for what they provide. All right, we don't know what that's going to be, but that's the idea, that's the basic idea we're going to have to listen for number 1. As soon as they then start talking about, when this person starts talking about projects of some kind, projects that are happening now, maybe they're going to talk about projects that happened in the past and we just don't have any information in our notes related to that. But what we're looking for question number 2 are the projects that this office is currently doing or currently working on, okay? So these are current projects, and we know from the provided information that there's a common area organization project going on, there's some type of music project going on, and then we need to figure out, after they talk about this music project, what is the third thing that they're working on currently. Okay, that's different from the things they're planning in the future, our third category. So as soon as the speaker starts shifting towards future projects or things they're going to do or planning to do, okay, think through what keywords they might describe to do this. We need to then focus on question number 3. So recreation center beautification, so making the recreation center look nicer in some way. Okay, and then we've got to listen for number 3 there, whatever that's going to be. All right, very simple sort of strategy here, just trying to notice what are going to be the movements from one question to the next, what is the key or basic information provided here, and what information do you need to listen for as you go through this. All right, now let's give this a try. Let's practice. So we're going to hear a portion of a lecture a portion of a discussion, a classroom discussion on sonar, the topic of sonar. And we've got some notes from the discussion that we need to fill out. So 2 questions from the notes, okay? Now, before we listen, notice that there are 2 words of a 2-word limit on your answers for the short answer question here. And we've got 2 categories, just like we saw in the last slide. We've got to look for that category information in the notes, and the 2 basic categories that we see here are common uses of sonar, so that would be a key word to underline there, uses, and common. All right, so we can expect that the discussion's going to surround in some way the normal uses of this thing, sonar. If you know what sonar is or not, we will have to listen for that, right, from the discussion. Secondly, then, special uses. Okay, interesting contrast there. Common uses and special uses of sonar, and key information there, in the ocean. Okay, so we're going to listen for what special applications are there for sonar in the sea, in the ocean. All right, and we need to listen for it. We've got some information provided, and we need to listen for what information completes this list of things in our notes. Okay, so we're going to pick up the lecture in the middle of the lecture here, and we're just going to listen to the part that pertains to these 2 questions, okay? So I'm going to play this passage now.
This technology has been used to discover long-lost shipwrecks, right?
Yes, Mark. Sonar equipment has helped solve the mysteries of some long-lost shipwrecks, but its everyday use is a bit more boring, mundane. Stuff like, how deep is the ocean floor here or there? What kind of rock or soil is there for drilling? Is there oil or gas below? The sonar echo is quite useful to many kinds of scientists, geophysicists, seismologists, oceanic cartographers, and even doctors.
Doctors? So sonar can actually be used on land?
Sometimes. Sonar is an acronym for Sound Navigation and Ranging. It's not very, strictly limited to use in water, but it's particularly useful for oceanic charting and exploration, because sound waves travel farther in liquid than light waves or radar do. Those are two object detection systems that are more effective above the surface of the water.
Okay, so the correct answer for this, hopefully you caught these. Number one, we hear, and this is language that's very similar to what's used by the professor in the lecture, identifying rock or soil types for drilling. Okay, the answer number two, there were two special uses of sonar described for the ocean, and those were exploration and the answer choice for number two, charting. Okay, and that comes from these parts of the discussion here. First of all, we get the list of things that are mentioned in your question. So if we return to that question again, the three things listed are measuring seafloor depth, then our question number one, and then the last one is locating gas or oil. All right, so the professor just talks about this, right? Just above our answer in line 3 there. How deep is the ocean floor here or there? Okay, so that's a discussion of one use, a general use for sonar, which is to measure the depth of the ocean floor. The second thing is listed next. What kind of rock or soil is there for drilling? Okay, some very similar language, not even much of a paraphrase there with the words rock or soil, okay? And the purpose for drilling is mentioned there, and that, of course, gives us our answer for number one. And then the third thing, is there oil or gas below? All right, so our three items listed there as general uses of sonar. Then on the next part of the discussion we hear, and it comes very quickly there, so you had to catch both of these things. But on the sea, in the ocean, right, the professor says it's particularly useful for oceanic charting and exploration. Okay, and so that's where we get our answer for question number 2 from the passage there. All right, so that's how to approach this type of question that has many different varieties, but really the same basic sort of goal or the same activity that you need to do to answer these questions well. Your job is to fill in gaps in information in all these forms of the question. What you need to do is study the provided information as you're planning before you listen to the passage. You're going to have time to study that information, including the titles, look for labels, look for any information to sort of get acquainted and get familiar with the information that's provided to you. Okay, and then you just need to pay attention to the organization of the visual, right? So where are the questions located? What information is there to give you an idea about when you're going to move from one question to the next? Usually there's some type of label or some bolded information in some notes or some key indication to give you an idea of when to move from one question to the next. Okay, so that's how to approach this type of question that has many different forms on the IELTS listening paper.